In the dead of night, fire became his weapon. Homes burned, cars exploded, and a community trembled. But the true horror? The arsonist was one of their own. When the police closed in, he was ready to take them all down. In early 2009, Glendale, a working-class suburb of Phoenix, was shaken by a wave of mysterious fires. At first, they seemed like accidents, an electrical short, a garage mishap. But soon, the pattern was undeniable. Cars were torched in driveways. Businesses reduced to ashes. In one case, a family returned from vacation to find their home a charred shell. The fires were targeted. Deliberate. Someone was hunting with gasoline and glass. Investigators recognized the method. Molotov cocktails, simple yet devastating. Gasoline-filled bottles, rags or fuses, hurled through windows or under vehicles. But this wasn't reckless vandalism. Every fire had a message. Detectives realized victims weren't chosen at random. They shared one thing in common, a past connection to a single man with a growing list of grudges. But how do you track someone who turns every crime scene into ash? Word spread fast. Neighbors began sleeping with fire extinguishers beside their beds. Families rotated night watches. Insurance claims spiked. Rumors swirled. Was it a gang initiation? Was it a disgruntled ex-employee? Or worse, was it random? And then, the firebomber struck when children were inside. A firebomb through a living room window nearly killed 2 sleeping kids. Glendale's nightmare was no longer property damage. It was survival. With the community on edge, investigators needed a breakthrough. And it would come from a mistake the firebomber never saw coming. At one scene, investigators found something unusual, a half-melted glove stuck to the pavement. Inside, DNA survived. It belonged to a man with a record, a local drifter, known for disputes with neighbors and violent outbursts. Police had a name, but proving he was a firebomber would require catching him in the act. For weeks, undercover officers followed him. They watched as he filled gas cans at midnight, bought cheap liquor bottles, and loitered near neighborhoods that later erupted in flames. But surveillance alone wasn't enough. The suspect was careful, always hooded, always moving under cover of darkness. Police knew the longer he stayed free, the greater the chance lives would be lost. Then came the night he went too far, and the police had no choice but to close in. In February 2010, the firebomber escalated beyond homes and cars. He targeted a small auto shop, igniting gasoline-soaked rags at multiple entry points. The shop exploded into flames, threatening nearby businesses. The community demanded action. Police knew they had to act before his next attack. Intelligence suggested his next target was far bigger, an apartment complex housing dozens of families. A single fire there could have turned Glendale into a mass casualty scene. March 18, 2010. After monitoring his movements, officers traced him to a rental house on the town's edge. Surveillance showed Gaskins piled near the door. The decision was made they would strike that night. But the firebomber wasn't planning to go quietly. He was ready for war. As officers approached, the first firebomb exploded against a patrol car. Molotovs rained down, flames spreading across the street. Neighbors were evacuated under emergency lights. For nearly 4 hours, the suspect battled police with fire. Tear gas filled the air. Flames lit the night sky. The suburban street looked like a war zone. And inside the burning house, the firebomber had one last desperate plan. SWAT launched a diversion, breaching from the rear with flashbangs. Within minutes, they pulled the firebomber out, burned, coughing, but alive. Inside, investigators found his arsenal. Dozens of Molotovs, maps of neighborhoods, and a handwritten hit list of names he planned to burn. The scale of his rage was staggering. Dozens of lives could have been lost. His trial drew headlines statewide. Prosecutors painted him as a terrorist who weaponized fire. The defense argued paranoia and untreated mental illness drove his spiral. Victims testified about nights of terror, the loss of homes, and the fear of fire haunting them even in sleep. The jury didn't hesitate. He was convicted and sentenced to decades behind bars. The Arizona Firebomber reminds us of the fragile trust we place in the quiet of our communities. His story is about vengeance unchecked, anger left to grow until it consumes everything. But it's also about resilience. Neighbors rebuilt, families stood together, and those scars remain. Glendale refused to let fear define them. This case forces us to confront a question. When anger meets isolation, who steps in before it becomes destruction? If this story gripped you, subscribe, share, and leave your thoughts below. Join us again here at the Mysterious Crime Box for more mysteries await inside the Crime Box.